The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Okay, welcome back to the Retro Rangers podcast. I'm your host, George Grimm, and I'm here this evening with an author named Sean McCaffrey, who has written 3 books about the Rangers so far, and he's probably going to write many more. His latest is a huge 4-volume set called Tricks of the Trade. It's got over 700 trades in it. It's like 1,400 pages altogether, and it's a huge chronicle of every trade ever made by the Rangers in the last nearly 100 years. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, George.
Okay. Now, before we start, I think we should thank Stan Fischler, first of all, because he has had quite an influence on both our careers. He's given us a lot of ink in his Hockey News Monday and Friday columns. And usually one of us is in there once a week at least, and it's been a blast, and we owe him a lot of thanks for helping us get where we are. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. He's done a lot for me since my first book came out. He's like, and I always say this, you know this. He's a 90-year-old guy. He doesn't need to be helping anybody, you know, and he's still sharp as a tack. And the way he goes out of his way for us, it's just amazing, you know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's really one of those things that you really don't expect, and when it happens, you're just so thankful. And it's one of those things that never get old. You see your name in Hockey News, and it's just one of those things that really take you back. It never gets old, because I remember reading the Hockey News when it was a newspaper when I was a kid, and to think that someday I would be in it, and you just say, "Whoa, that's amazing."
We're at the tail end of him now, but if you go back, I mean, how many hockey writers started because of him too?
Oh yeah, well, all his interns. He had that intern programs, and quite a few people who we see on TV now are one of his interns. Frank Brown was an intern. Molly Walker in the Post.
I think Arthur Staple, right?
Yes, and he's amazing. And the fact that he's not in the Hall of Fame is just a travesty. I mean, he should. If anyone should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame, it should be Stan, but he's not. And on the outside, he seems to be okay with it, like it doesn't bother him. But I would think that he's hurt in a way that he's being ignored like that. But
I think, or I know he can't be happy about it. I think he's more upset that his wife isn't in, because his wife Shirley was a pioneer for female reporters.
Oh, sure. Yeah, she was the first female in the Ranger locker room back in the 70s, I guess. So.
And she had to endure a lot too. They wouldn't let her in the press box, and she had to sit in the stand. So she was a real trailblazer in that way.
Yeah. Okay, now your previous books, you wrote New York Rangers Rink of Honor and The Rafters at Madison Square Garden. Then you wrote One Game at a Time, A Season to Remember, and then volume 2 of that was The Rise of Tsar Igor. So, now, this book now, any idea how long it took you to write it?
Tricks of the Trade, maybe 14 months from start to finish.
Okay.
Where the last 2-3 months was just editing and formatting, and
right.
I was 4 volumes. It took a lot.
Right. Was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it more work than you thought it was going to be, or
Oh, it was 4 times the amount of work, because I never said, "Hey, let me go write a 4-volume set." I started doing it, and as it's going along, I think when I got to, I guess right around the Phil Esposito trade, I'm like, wow, I'm up to almost 400 pages already. Like, there's no way I'm going to get this done.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to chop stuff up because if you've read some of it already, and I don't want to leave anything like unturned. You know, I want to have everything covered.
Right.
Corner. So I just said, let me just do it, go all the way, and see how far it goes. And I know I probably messed up a little bit. I probably should have released it volume by volume because it's hard to push 4 books at once. But it's out there. Black Friday's coming up. Christmas is coming up. So hopefully people have money in their pockets and go to Amazon.
Right. Well, you did a great job. I mean, it isn't just a plain listing of trades. You trace the players before and after each trade, and it's really interesting, and it brings back a lot of memories for me, good and bad, and it's really interesting. I'm up to Neil Smith now, and I just got through Espo. And now I'm working on the Neil Smith era. So
that means
and then I'll get into the other guy.
I was gonna say it means a lot to me that you bought the book too, because I'm a huge fan of your work. I think one of my favorite books is We Did Everything But Win. I don't think anyone's covered a era like you did with that book. You know.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to write because I grew up watching those guys. And to be able to call them up on the phone and talk to them, and it's just like it was like a real thrill, So that was a lot of fun to write.
Yeah, you could tell it when it was like a passion project,
Yeah, yeah. Now, how about the Rangers? When did they first show up on your sports radar?
Oof. Well, I'm 40 years old now, so I was born in '82, so I guess around '86 or '87, because my grandfather used to run the box office at Madison Square Garden, so he was always a Ranger fan.
Cool.
My dad's a big Ranger fan, so it's it's passed down like most fandoms are,
Yeah. And what about writing the books? What inspired you to write the books about the Rangers?
Well, I was doing the website for about 8 years, the bluecollarblueshirts.com.
Right.
And I was doing You're probably aware of it. I was writing about Frank Boucher a couple of years back,
Right.
And over time, the Boucher family found my writings, and I talk about this in the book. It led to a big friendship with me and Frank Boucher's granddaughter, Frankie.
Right.
Met her, talked, everything like that. And when the pandemic hit, I'm stuck in the house. I can't go to work. I'm a construction worker. There's nothing going on. I was out of work. There's nothing to do. So what am I gonna do with my free time? How many episodes of Tiger King could you watch at a time?
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah.
So let me try to tackle this. I wrote a blog about this, about who the Rangers have ignored. But I said I could probably turn this into a book one day, and people said you should. And then I had the free time now with the pandemic, and I just went with it.
Yeah. Good. That's how it happens. You just have an idea of something that you want to write about, and you sit down and write it, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of pages behind you, and then you can't stop. So, all right, top 5 Ranger trades and the worst 5 Ranger trades. What do you got?
The 5 best and 5 worst.
Yep.
I want to say as a disclaimer, it's tough to. I know that everyone loves the list because you always debate them. But some of these, you gotta actually know all the background stories, the time of the era and everything like that. Because the second best trade I would say was when the Rangers got David Kerr in 1934 for the Montreal Maroons, and that was, you wouldn't see a cash trade today, But that was a monumental trade for the Rangers. And Dave Kerr went on to win the Stanley Cup, the Vezina. He's the only goalie to win the Cup and the Vezina for the Rangers. So I think that trade gets lost in the wayside because also people look at trades as a pure hockey trade. You don't see too many pure hockey trades anymore. So it's just hard.
No, you don't have to do contracts now.
Right. So I would put the Kerr as the second one, but it's obviously the first one. I would put the Mark Messier trade from '91.
Right.
I think people forget they got Jeff Bukaboom in that trade too.
That's right.
So I would do so that was Messier and Bukaboom for I believe David Shaw, Steve Rice, Louis DeBrusque, and Bernie Nichols. And I know Bernie Nichols. That's another story with him. The way he got traded. If you remember, he got traded at the All-Star game in Pittsburgh that year.
Yeah.
The year before. And then I guess number 3, I will go with the Yager trade from the Capitals for Anson Carter.
Okay.
And that's not a pure hockey trade either. That was a salary cap dump, for Washington. Well, not a salary cap dump, but a salary dump from Washington,
Right.
Trying to think. There's a lot more worse than best.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, well, that goes without saying. That's why we only won 4 cups in 100 years. But
I guess for maybe a more modern trade, I guess the McDonough deal.
Yeah.
McDonough, I believe it was Chris Higgins, the Russian Valentenko for Scott Gomez, who was the big fish. Again, a salary cap dump trade. So Gomez, Tom Pyatt, and Michael Busto. And for a 5th, I'm going to go with an oddball one. I don't know if you'd agree with this one. I'd say Doug Harvey in 1961 when they traded Lou Fontinato for him. Just because Harvey Norris that year, he coached them, and even though he was at the end of his career, I mean, he was amazing for them for that one season they had him,
Right.
And I guess maybe as I was thinking about it, even though it's not the best trade in the world, it still helped the Rangers big time, especially, and you could talk all about this because this is your in your wheelhouse, was the Bathgate trade in '64. When Bathgate won the Cup with Toronto.
Yeah.
They got players for that. Bob Nevins, Sealing, Brown, Dusk, and those were part of the Francis era.
Right. Well, even the Gump Worsley for Jacques Plante trade, that was a good trade for the Rangers too. It really didn't help Muzz Patrick at all, but they got Marshall and Goyette out of that deal, and they were both parts of the foundation of the rebuilding that was going to come under Emil Francis. So
principal, and that was constant. And he was the bust for them. While you're right, Marshall and Goyette were want to become the 2 stars for them.
Yeah.
Another trade. It was the Toronto right before. I think it's off the top of my head. I want to say it's the '48 when they got Buddy O'Connor and Frankie Eddles.
Yes, that's on my list. Yeah. That was Montreal.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Frank Boucher almost lost his job over that because Lester Patrick didn't want him to make the deal, even though Lester Patrick was not the GM anymore. He still had the ear of the Ranger president, and he didn't want Boucher to trade younger players for Buddy O'Connor, who was not old, but he was older than the players he was getting, but Buddy O'Connor helped them get into the playoffs that year. So and he became a good, pretty good player for the Rangers for at least 3 or 4 years, and they got a pretty good defenseman out of that too, with Frankie Eddles. So it was a good deal. I mean, and Boucher said, you let me make this deal or I'm leaving, and he meant it. So
I know that one of the I don't want to say regrets, but I know the thing that bothered Boucher the most at the end was how him and Patrick had that forced relationship.
Yeah.
He says it in his own book. I don't know if I'm sure you've read it by now. When the Rangers were young.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he talks about it, like how he, it just stunk how that all worked out. Patrick didn't really. It's kind of like say that today.
Yeah. All right. As the best trades. The only one I would add to that was when Francis traded Marcel Pailly and a bunch of minor leaguers to the Providence Reds for Eddie Jockman. That set them up for at least 10 years to come. That was a good deal on Emil's part, and that's about it. That's the only one I would add to that. So.
And Francis, the only one who believed in Jockman too. They're booing him, they're throwing fruits and vegetables at him, and 2 or 3 years later, he became a generational goalie for them.
Yeah. All right, how about the worst trades?
I mean, I guess I'm gonna get. Maybe we'll just go 1 through 5 with you on this, and we can see if we agree on the same 5.
Okay.
I guess the first one has to be Middleton, right?
Yeah, and the Miller Ridley Carpenter deal too. I didn't like that one either. I think that one was worse than the Middleton deal. But it's all a matter of your perception. I mean, Middleton became a good player in Boston when he was taken under the wing of Don Cherry, and if he had stayed in New York, or if he had not turned his career around, Hodge for Middleton would have been a wash. But because Hodge was a waste down here, and Middleton went on to have a really great career up in Boston. And Ridley and Miller went on to play a long time in the league, and they were good for the Rangers when they were here, and they were traded for Bobby Carpenter, who was only here for a month or so.
I think 20. Yeah.
And then they traded him to L.A. with Laidlaw for Marcel Dion, and Marcel Dion was small and old, and he had no business being in the Patrick division back then, But that's
it was a classic Esposito deal, yeah. Get him, flip him 6 weeks later,
Right.
So my second one would have been the Ridley Miller deal. So we have it 1-2, just in different order.
Right.
Third trade, again, there's so many bad ones, so there's it's going to be a difference of opinion. I go, maybe this is me being nostalgic because I was, this is like when I first was really a hardcore fan, because that's my age. I would go with the Zubov and Nedved trade to Pittsburgh for Robitaille and Samuelson.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Yep.
Because Zubov looked like what he went on to do.
Yeah.
See, like I said, there's so many bad ones. It's hard to say what's the top five. Maybe more recent, although this was salary cap and rebuild influenced, was the McDonough and JT Miller trade to the Lightning. They got Hayek, Howden.
Right.
That's too much. I don't know. What do you have for 3-4 right now?
Number 3 is Rick Nash for Artem Zimov and Brendan Dubinsky and Tim Erickson. I mean, Nash didn't really do much here. They always said he was a great guy in the locker room, but we didn't trade for him to be a great guy in the locker room. He was that one playoff, that first playoff he was with the Rangers. There was early on in the playoffs where he and I had the same amount of goals, and that's not right. That shouldn't be it, The
thing about Nash is that he's actually one of part of the best trades too when you think about it. Because when they traded him to Boston, they got Lindgren. Later they got Porter, who turned into Ryan Strome. I'm missing somebody there. I think the Condre Miller was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm missing somebody. They had to take Matt Bolesky. That's what it was. They had to take his contract to work. Okay. But that trade worked out later on for Nash. At least they got something back. Good, Yeah.
And the thing with Nash too is that since they had to pay him so much money, they couldn't afford to fit Carl Hagelin under the cap, and they had to lose Hagelin. And Hagelin was a much better player, as far as the Rangers are concerned, than Nash was. But I'm not GM.
That's another bad trade. Hagelin for Edom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they said, MS Edom's going to be a poor man's Hagelin. He was just poor,
Mm-hmm.
And what do you have?
How about Brian Leach going to Toronto on his birthday?
That was horrible. But that's like I know everyone says, and that's someone who should have retired as a Ranger.
Yeah.
They took less money right before that contract, right before that trade to stay in New York, and then they traded him anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's either. Yeah. Then I have Bill Gadsby for Les Hunt in the 50s. That was a Muzz Patrick deal. Bill Gadsby's in the Hall of Fame, and Les Hunt never played in the NHL. And then my last one is the Espo deal. That really wasn't such a bad deal as much as it was, the end of an era. I mean, that's how that hit me. Yeah, we only got one Hall of Famer, and they got two, but Espo served a purpose here for a while. I really hated seeing Brad Park go because he was my youth, and he gave the Rangers hope back then. And Mattel was the best player the Rangers had at the time. And but that was just the end of an era. I mean, that was the end of the Emil Francis era right there. So, and that's that broke my heart.
I guess another one I'd throw in there was the Mark Savard trade. They traded Savard to Calgary, and they got and they got John Hlavich, Pavel Brendel, and all that.
Yeah.
Pavel Brendel and all that. And the Kel Samuelson trade with the Flyers, I think it was for Bob Froese, Fries, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was bad. I mean, there's so many, again, you have to look at the errors and stuff like that to say what was what. Even you go into the Espo trade, was that really the worst? Like you said, the Espo served a purpose, but it was the end of the era and everything. But they did waive Joachim right before that, so I think that was the first real big blow. Even though they got right before that,
Yeah.
I think Bill Muir was gone by then, right?
Yeah. He went to Chicago. He was actually the first one to go during that period. He went to Chicago for Doug Jarrett, and Doug Jarrett came here with a bad leg, so he couldn't play. How about the Pavel Brendel? You just mentioned Pavel Brendel. Was he the prospect who the Rangers traded for, and he showed up at camp overweight, and he never really played for the Rangers, or if he did, it was a very short time.
He wasn't overweight. It's just that they didn't think he took it seriously. He didn't look good. I want to say. They say overweight. I'm thinking about guys like Brendan Smith and Kevin Shattenkirk after the weddings. He was just didn't have the right attitude. He said he was. I remember at the time they said he was sick. They said his first practice. I remember the New York Times was burying his first practice. And imagine today, first practice, Capo Caco stinks. Alexis Lafreniere stinks. That's what they were writing about. Mm-hmm. And that's only 23 years ago now.
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
Yeah, so they trashed him hard, and he lit it up in the WHL, and for whatever reason, Neil Smith never pushed him to the to Hartford or Connecticut at the time, and he just was happy to be good on the WHL rather than trying to move up, and he never played for Rangers. And that was the same draft where Brian Burke got the Sedins. So if Neil Smith could have got the Sedin twins, instead his plan was to get Pavel Brendel and Jamie Lundmark. And
Jamie Lundmark, that's the other guy. Yeah. He had to trade up for them. Yeah. I remember that.
So Brian Burke went for the Sedins, and Smith had, like I said, Lundmark and Brendel on his mind. And the other pick of that draft wasn't that great. The first pick wasn't that good either. Stefan.
Yeah.
The Sedins went 2-3, I believe, and then Brendel was 4, I think. Like I said, I'm just off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track after a while.
Yeah, especially you got 100 trades running around your head,
Yeah, I know. All right, best Ranger general managers and worst Ranger general managers.
I mean, it's got to be Lester, right? Lester Patrick's got the 3 Stanley Cups, so it's got to be him. Again, there's the trades, it's all different eras. He only had 6 teams, but even then, he was always at a disadvantage because Montreal, Toronto always had the best picks of the litter. Due to the way the draft rights were back then. Right.
Yeah, they had rights to the players coming up in their province. Yeah.
And then they didn't have to worry about a circus on the playoff either.
Right.
So I'd have to go with Lester Patrick if that's who you have.
What's that? Say it again.
I have Patrick as first. Is that who you would have?
Yeah, Patrick is the best, but it's also I think it was a little easier to win a Stanley Cup back then too, because you didn't have that many rounds. But Patrick certainly put together good teams, and Frank Boucher won it in that first year as coach, so you got to give him some credit for that. And yeah, I mean, you can't say anything bad about Lester Patrick.
I was going to say it's funny because you just said he didn't build the first team. It was Conn Smythe who built the first team.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I mean, who knows how Conn Smythe would have done? But you really know what had to work with, and it was Patrick who took Smythe's team and won in the second year. You know,
that was the first case of God management interfering with the Rangers when they wanted Babe Dye, and Conn Smythe didn't think they needed Babe Dye, and so they fought, and he left, and he called Lester Patrick the Silver Fox. So
yeah, Rangership interfering, 100-year tradition.
yeah.
And the worst, I would like to say Glenn Sather hands down, but then you got to look at John Ferguson there, because but then again, Ferguson was there for a little bit, and he was tasked with that mini rebuild there, so it's hard to really put him as the worst, because I think he was only there for 2 years. So I have to go with Glenn Sather. For over 15 years, he never won. Longest reigning New York City general manager of all team sports to never win. I mean, it's got to be Sather.
Yeah, when he was in Edmonton, he said if he had the Rangers payroll, he would win the Stanley Cup every year, but he didn't. So he came here before the cap was put in, so he did have an opportunity to win it, before the cap came to be, but he just didn't do it. He pushed too hard. He saw too many bright, shiny things that he wanted, and he really emptied the Rangers cupboard. He traded every asset he had, or every young player, every draft pick that he had, and by the time he left, the Rangers had nothing. And you gotta credit Jeff Gorton for building the Rangers back up again, because when he moved in there, Sather didn't leave him anything. So
that's right. Right. I say this in the book too, because I talk about each general man. It's not just exclusive to trades. The book, we're talking about general managers, the other histories.
Right.
And when Sather left, he knew it was done. The window was closed, and he's like, "All right, Jeff, you clean up my mess. I'll just be your boss."
I know. It's all yours. Yeah. Have fun.
So he put him in a bad spot. So I thought Jeff Gordon was good. I didn't think he deserved to be fired, and I didn't think John Davidson and Quinn had to be fired either. But yeah, I know it's just a business, and I'm fine with what they got now. But I just don't think they should. I thought Gordon was good for what he did.
Yeah. That's who I would. That's what I would say too. I spoke to Espo yesterday, and he likes the Rangers coach Gerard Gallant a lot. He said he had him as a player down in Tampa at the end of his career, and he really likes him a lot. The Rangers have a good coach, he said. So he's happy with that. So
that's talking to Esposito had to be a blast too.
Yeah. Well,
I know he's not too high in the rank today, from what I understand.
No, it's one of those things where you hang up the phone with him, and you just think to yourself, "Wow, I just spoke to Phil Esposito," and he's wow. So it's always a thrill. That's something else that doesn't get old either. When you get a chance to talk to these guys, it doesn't get old. So. All right, let me ask you about Emil Francis. When he retired from hockey, as an active player in 1960, he was supposed to sign on with the Chicago organization to coach one of their minor league teams, and Tommy Ivan, the GM of Chicago, kind of dragged his feet for a while, and he didn't jump at the chance to sign Emil. And Muzz Patrick came in and he signed Emil, and Emil ended up coaching down in the Rangers farm system. And from there he moved up to the Ranger to be Muzz Patrick's assistant coach. And then when Muzz got fired, he moved into the the general manager's chair. Now, had Amo not signed with the Rangers, Muggs would have been fired anyway. Sooner or later. Who do you think would have moved in to take over the Rangers?
I don't have a 100% accurate answer. Just guessing. Just because the way they did things, I would say Red Sullivan, because that's usually the way it worked. Coach the general manager, take both jobs, and then coach job. But I think you have different answers, right?
Yeah, I said it was either going to be Bun Cook, who had success in Cleveland, the Cleveland Barons, or Jackie Gordon, who also had success with the Barons. I know Bill Cook came up to coach when Frank Boucher was GM, and he didn't do well at all, so he would be out of the picture. And the Rangers, back then they always went from in-house. They always hired from in-house, so or from someone who had played for the team. And I think it would have been one of those guys. But, Red Sullivan's a good pick, too. But
just off the top of my head, I just didn't think the Cook, either one of them, just because, like you just said, Bill had the big experience, and he always said, him and Frank are always good friends, but he always said, if I'm going to be a coach, I want to be able to pick my own players.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. And Bun was one of the best AHL coaches of all time. So I don't know if he would have left and uprooted where he was living and everything just after his brother's experience. But who knows? Because it could happen. I really don't know 100% either way.
Yeah. Well, Bill Cook, when he was a Ranger coach, he pissed off the Ranger president, John Reed Kilpatrick, I think. He liked to go in the Ranger locker room between periods and talk to the boys, as he would say. And Bill Cook said, "No, this is my locker room. You stay out." so that kind of gave him a very short leash at the time. So.
Well, there you go. Talking about 100 years of Ranger ownership and interfering. So there you go. There's another great book.
Yeah. What do you think about the current Rangers?
I guess the one word. This is a clean podcast, so I would say disappointment. Going into the season, I was very high on them last year. I don't know if you were reading what I was writing then. Going into the season, once Drury was hired, I said I called it on my site. I wrote these words: the Rangers will end versus Tampa Bay 2022 Eastern Conference Final. And I said it in September. That's how high I was on them. And you all the way. This year, I felt the same way. I thought they'd go to the Stanley Cup. Still a lot of time left. I thought they'd go to the Stanley Cup Final, but everything I can understand all the moves they made. I understand the salary cap and everything like that, but I thought they'd be a lot better, and I think they were banking on the kids, and that's all four of them: Kakko, Kravtsov, Lafreniere, and Hedl, to really step it up to replace the veterans that they lost, and it's not happening. You can say that the Kakko and Lafreniere are playing well, and I don't know how they look on those charts. I don't really follow those analytics stuff, but the bottom line is they're not scoring points. And when you lose Toronto, you lose Kopp, and they were expecting these guys to step up for them, and that did not happen so far. We were 18 games in now, and they're not doing it. And Igor doesn't look the same, and I think, he's still great. Don't get me. I'm not saying anything negative about him, but I do think having a 2-month baby changed his life a little bit. Maybe the way he prepares and trains,
Yeah.
Truba's hurt. You could see that, and I think Condrey Miller. A lot of people, including myself, they all thought he might steal a Norris vote or two from Fox this year, and ever since the preseason ended, he's kind of regressed. I believe the Miller Trouba been on for more goals than any other defensive pairing in the league, so that's not great. And Zibanejad, he's got 18 games here and only 2 even-strength goals in that time, and 2 were in that same game, that blowout against Detroit. And Panarin looks like a ghost sometimes. Feels like Panarin is either a multi-point game, that's why he's got the most points on the team, or he stretches the games with no points at all. Right now, as we speak, it's been 3 games. He hasn't scored once and not picked up a point. And his last 2 games, he hasn't even had a shot on goal. So there's a lot of stuff. I don't really know what to say how to fix it. I don't know what Gallant is in the locker room or whatnot, but there's just something missing there, and I don't know how you finger point it. I know I'm talking too much here, but even like Jimmy Vesey and Julien Gauthier, who had them on this roster at the preseason, and now you got Vesey's your first line right winger right now. So
I know what you mean. Yeah.
There's a lot of Yeah, and then the other problem is too, and I'll finish up here. They go into the season, they want to get to 22 men so they can accrue extra cap space for the deadline. 5 weeks in now, they've only done that for 2 days. They've been carrying 23 men otherwise. So I don't know where the reinforcements will be coming at the trade deadline because they're not going to have the money to do anything. That's
right. Yeah, they have to trade players to clear the cap money. What about the fact that maybe last year everybody had a career year? Kreider maybe had a career year, and he can't repeat it this year, and even Igor.
Yeah, well, Kreider, he had the 52 goals, obviously, but going into the season, I expected 35. I don't think he was going to hit 50 again. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah.
But I think he's fine. I know people get on him. I just find it ironic when you read other people, and they always have, like, double standards. They're like, Kreider, he's only got 7 goals. He had 50 last year. And then when you say, well, Kakko's got, like, 4 points right now. Oh, we're not talking about Kakko. Like, this is different standards. I mean, Kakko's won 200 games here now, right, in his career? And,
yeah.
Is he a second overall pick, or is he, like, the second coming of Jesper Fast here,
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I don't understand how they could beat these good teams, and then when these bad teams come on the schedule, they just lay an egg every time.
Yeah, they're losing to the teams that they should beat, and that's something they didn't do last year. They won the games that they should have won, and then they won the games that they, had to fight for, and this year they're not. So, what do you think about Lundqvist doing commercials for sports books?
I know it's a controversial topic, but I don't mind it. I know he's made $100 million in his career, and who knows what else he's made with his other investments. But I think he's kind of I don't know this for a fact. I'm just speculating. I think he's forced to do these commercials because he's the MSG ambassador, and Caesars is one of the sponsors. So I think he's just doing this as his role as ambassador. And so, like I said, I know he made $100 million, but when I see the Manning brothers, who've made significantly more money than him doing those commercials nonstop, how can you knock the guy?
Yeah. You think if he needed money, he would push a line of men's clothing or grooming products, they're more appropriate for him, But
But I think that's the way sports are now. Like I wrote this on, I think I wrote this on Stan's column. Every time you watch a game now, it feels like a 3-hour infomercial for gambling, and then there's a game on too.
Yeah. It's really changed a lot. I remember years ago, they didn't like having a preseason game in Las Vegas because it was too close to the casinos. And look at Major League Baseball. They suspended Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays for being greeters at a hotel, and now all the leagues are just embracing the gambling. So there must be a lot of money in it for the teams themselves, So
probably the biggest revenue generator for them right now. And then look at that 10 years ago. I mean, you got a hockey team in Vegas now. You got a football team in Vegas. I believe the Oakland A's there's rumors they're going to be moving to Vegas soon. And I know the NBA is trying to get in there too. So, I mean, it was a complete 180. I'm sure Pete Rose's head is spinning right now.
Well, good. I don't like Pete Rose anyway. All right. How about your next project? What are you working on now? Well, what's up next?
I have 3 things I'm trying to work on. I just have to zone in to see which one I want to do first. I think the first one I'm going to do is like I said, the last 2 books are kind of serious and intense, so I kind of want to do something more lighthearted and comedic.
Okay.
But next book I'm going to do is the 100 biggest Ranger villains.
Okay.
Obviously, like Dennis Poffin would be number 1 on the list, and then 100 different things, and it won't be exclusive to just players and GMs. Like I would put the Bell Center in Montreal as a villain. I'd put the cursed Liberty jerseys up there, 'cause I don't think the Rangers ever won a game in them. So that'd be one project. Another one, a serious project, would be kind of like this trades book, would be going through every single draft ever, hits, misses, what happened afterwards, who they could have got, who they did get, You know,
that's a big project.
And
that's a very big project. Yeah.
Right. Off the top of your head, the biggest one would be the 1977 drafts. You know, Duguay and Dubois instead of getting Mike Bossy. You know.
Yeah, I know. I lived through that, and I every time I talk about John Ferguson, I always bring that up because he didn't want his scouts told him that Mike wouldn't fight, and I always say, well, he's not punching the puck into the net, you know. He went and won 4 Stanley Cups for the Islanders, and he's the Hall of Famer, and he scored how many goals, and you know, and it was just a poor choice, and he had 2 shots at him too, you know.
No, I know. So that'd be the big one. That'd be like that's probably one of the cover pictures for that book. And the third one I'm trying to do is a screenplay on the life of Tex Rickard. Tex Rickard,
oh, good. That should be interesting.
Yeah, because if you're familiar with his story, you're probably more familiar with his story than most people. But if you look at his story, his life is like Deadwood meets Boardwalk Empire meets Yellowstone, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, things were wide open back then. You know, it was everything was up for grabs back then. The country was just growing, and the business was growing, and hockey was just coming into New York City, and even that he went back on his deal with the New York with Big Bill Dwyer of the Americans. I mean, he said, yeah, you know, you'll be the only team here, and then he changed his mind. He brought the Rangers in. So
it's so crazy because Tex Rickard, his life is just incredible. The guy was on Gold Rush in Alaska. He was on safari hunts in Africa. He was good friends with Teddy Roosevelt, good friends with W.C. Fields, good friends with Wyatt Earp. He was at Marshall for a long time. Yeah, he was a Marshall for a long time. I mean, he's considered the best boxing promoter of all time. The hockey stuff was just at the final 3 or 4 years of his life, and even then he was involved in he was accused of being a pedophile, and it turned out to be a big scam and a fraud.
Wow.
He was being extorted. And like just all the stuff that was going on that he had going, it's just insane. And then in the hockey, and it was funny, he also owned a bunch of casinos, but he was a notorious gambler himself. So it wasn't like casinos of today. They're obviously a lot smaller back then. It was like a saloon kind of, casinos.
Yeah.
The gambler loses his own casinos all the time. And then he was kind of known as a rube, kind of like a market for a little bit there, which is why when he like swindled Bill Dwyer, mob figure, connected to the underworld, it just it was just completely out of character for him. But I guess at that point he was mid-50s, and I guess he learned a few things along the way. Plus he was a boxing promoter, so he kind of, his life kind of changed from his early days at that time. But still, to screw over Bill Dwyer that's a major move.
Yeah. So, you don't live through things like that too often. Sometimes you get shot in the back alley, but he made it through, so good for him. Okay, where can people buy your books?
If people want signed copies, I'm offering all 4 of them on my website. That's bluecollarblueshirts.com. If not, you could type in Tricks of the Trade or just my name into Amazon, and all my books will pop up there. Okay.
Are you doing any book signings anywhere?
Nah, just sign them. There's nowhere to go anymore. Cosby's is gone.
Well, there's libraries. I always had good luck in the libraries. Libraries that have book clubs and things like that. They like having authors there, and you can give a brief talk about your book, and then you sit down and sell and sign. I always had good luck there.
I just feel
about that.
What I'm writing about is such a niche topic, that's tough to draw mainstream interest. But the good thing about me is I've had that website going now for 8.5 years. So I haven't built a leadership that supports all my books. So I guess I could be more aggressive chasing book signings, but I haven't done it.
Okay. The project that I'm working on is about the Ranger general managers. I just came up with a title. Many are called, but few succeed. And I'm up to Espo. I'm finishing up Espo now, and I'm going to move on to Neil Smith, and hopefully be able to call him, and then go on to Sater and Gorton and Drury. So
you're in the thick of things now. You're over the halfway mark.
Yeah. Well, it's halfway through the draft. Like, as you know, probably, you end up reading the book about half a dozen times after you're done. I mean, people ask me how many books I read last year. I could say 8, and 6 of them are mine, because you just keep reading it over and over again to catch all the mistakes and to smooth out the rough spots, and you just do a lot of reading of your own stuff. So, but that's
tough to read your own stuff too, because like at least editing yourself before you hand it into your editor, because you're reading your own voice. And I don't know if you do this. I do it all the time. I write double words, or I'll forget like little stuff like the and a, because I'm reading it in my mind.
Yeah, because it's there, and as you read it back to yourself, it's supposed to be there. So you read it as being there, but it's not. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that's why it's just. I read a lot. I read everything. I read everyone's books. I buy every book. I bought all yours. I bought everything you see on Amazon. Now, as long as it's not a crazy price, I'll buy it and read it. And what I know is, times than not, from independent authors, is that they don't get an editor and they just write it and print it how they. So you gotta. If anyone wants to write a book, please hire someone who knows what they're doing with the editing, because if I'm reading a book and I see errors all over the first 2 pages, I can't take the message seriously, even if what the message is correct.
Right. Right. Well, let me give you a tip. There's this guy, Sean McCaffrey, who writes very good books. So you should grab one of his books and read it. Okay. All right, Sean. Well, thanks for being on. We're running out of time now. Like to have you on again when we maybe when you come out with another book, or when there's some other range of news to talk about.
Yeah, hopefully we'll talk about the Stanley Cup in 2023, right?
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm not holding my breath, but it would be nice. I'm a realist, Sean. I'm sorry, I'm a realist. I had my Stanley Cup, all right? I had it. It's up to all you young guys now to sweat out the next 50 years. So.
12 and 94. One is an adult.
Yeah. All right, Sean. Thank you very much for being on. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, George, and good luck on the book.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.